All right, now we're going to review some slope-intercept form, which once again, you might be able to do these IXLs without watching the video. If you look at your 5-3 notes, and if that is enough information for you, you can go forth. Otherwise, watch the video to remind you how to do it. So a couple of things before we see some examples. We want to remind you about slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b, which I kind of talked about in the last video a little bit. Y equals mx plus b is slope-intercept form. Remember, there are two other types, point-slope form. Just to remind you, this is not going to be something you will practice today, but just so that you remember it. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1 is point-slope form. And then ax plus by equals c is standard form. Okay, but those are ones we are not going to focus on for today. We're going to stick with our slope-intercept form. So back to our slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. Slope-intercept form is called that because with the equation, it can tell you what your slope and your y-intercept are. Your slope is m. Whatever number that is your slope. Your y-intercept is b, whatever number that is. Okay? So if you have an equation, you can say what your slope is based on what m is, and you can say what your slope is, or your y-intercept based on what b is, and you can use those to help you graph. You also could go in reverse. I could give you a graph. You should be able to find where your y-intercept is and what your slope is by counting your rise over your run and filling those numbers in. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about writing the equation given the slope and the y-intercept. So let's say I tell you that the slope is 1/2 and the y-intercept is 3. Okay, so to fill this into slope-intercept form, we just need to plug in the slope and the y-intercept in their correct places. So slope, remember, is m, and y-intercept is b. So this is very easy to plug in. We keep y. M, which is our slope, we know is 1/2. We keep x. B, which is our y-intercept, we know is 3. So plus 3. So our equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 3. Given the information of the slope is 1/2 and the y-intercept is 3. Okay. Another example, let's say we have that the y-intercept is -2 and the slope is -4/5. Right? So same as before, you want to make sure that you know what exactly it is that you're plugging in where. So our y-intercept, all this time they kind of gave us in reverse order. Y-intercept is always b, slope is always m. Okay, so when you plug them in, you don't want to just plug in the first number in the first place and the second number in the second place. You want to make sure you plug in the correct places. So your slope is m, which is -4/5 times x, and your y-intercept, your b, is -2, so I'd put -2. So y equals -4/5x. -2 is your equation. Okay. Off to the side here, if I were to give you an equation, you should be able to tell me the slope and you should be able to tell me the y-intercept. So slope is the number in front of x. Y-intercept is the constant that's by itself. So your slope would be 3, your y-intercept would be 5. What if I give you y equals 3/5x minus 7? Your slope, the number in front of x, is 3/5. Your y-intercept is your constant, is -7 because of that minus sign. One more example. Let's go y equals -x. Yeah, y equals -x. Let's go with that example. Your slope is the number that's in front of x. So what number is in front of x? Well, right now I don't see a number. So what's the imaginary number that's there when you don't see it? 1. But paying attention to there's a negative sign, so your slope is -1. Okay? Your y-intercept is the number that's by itself. It's the constant. What's your constant? Well, I don't see one. There isn't one. So it's like I have +0. So your y-intercept is 0. Okay? If you don't have a number in front of x, that's 1. But if you don't have a y-intercept, that's 0. All right. The last part we need to look at is graphing the equation. Okay, so if it were to give you y equals 1/2 x minus 5, that you should be able to graph that, which you would always start at the y-intercept. That's step number 1. So your y-intercept is -5. So on your graph, you would graph -5 on the y-axis. Then step 2 is use the slope for rise over run from the y-intercept. So in our case, our slope is 1/2 or 1/2, which means you rise up 1 and run right 2 from that point on -5. Remember, you can go up and right. You can also go down and left because it's positive. 2 negatives make a positive. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple of examples here on IXL so that you can see what that looks like exactly. So you're going to start, and once again, we look at what our y-intercept is. So remember, your y-intercept is your number by itself, which in our case is 5. So we're going to go up to 5. Then we need to use our slope. We look at the number in front of x for your slope, which remember, there isn't one, so there's an imaginary 1. So it seems like we need to go up 1. Remember, though, we need to make that a fraction. We can't just go up 1. 1 as a fraction is 1/1. So go up 1 and right 1. And there is your line. Okay. Y-intercept is 2. Your slope is 8, which remember is 8/1. So you need to go up 8 and over 1. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. We don't have a y-intercept. What's our y-intercept? Means start at 0. Then go up 1 and over 10 because your slope is 1/10. On this graph, notice that there's not the other quadrants. So if you were to get a negative, let's say this was -1/7. And let's hold on. Let's see if I can get an example that has a negative real quick. No, okay, well, let's pretend that this is a -6. Okay, so I'm going to start at my 4. If this was -6, you're supposed to go down 6 and right 1. And that's how you would graph this down 6 and right 1. I don't have that graph able on here, but sometimes you go up and left, but you can't go up and left on this graph. So you're going to go down and right on all of your graphs. Okay. It's not going to give me a negative when I want a negative. Oh, there's a negative. So let me show you that example. So our y-intercept is 6. Your slope is -1/6. So you can't go up and right. That's positive. So if you go up, you need to go left, but this graph doesn't have up and left. So instead of up and left, do the opposite. Go down and right. So go down 1 and right 6. Okay. That's how you can do negatives on this graph.